It's December in here. I don't know if it's December wherever you are. This is the Dan Corder Show. South Africa is a movie. That's the sound of people who are about to go on holiday. Okay, so Shamila Batohi has one of the most important jobs in South Africa. A lot of people don't really know nor understand the job, but it's unbelievably important. When you hear about corruption going on in South Africa and the State Capture Commission, and you think no one's ended up in orange overalls, none of these big, powerful people with so many allegations against them, whether it's Ace Makashule or Edwin Sodi or the Zumas or whoever, so much evidence against them, no one's even going on trial. What is going on here? The people you're complaining about is the National Prosecuting Authority. They are the people whose job it is to go after high priority crimes. Shamila Batohi is about to have to retire as per her work term limits, and we now know the shortlist of 6 people, one of whom is going to succeed her and take over arguably the most important job in South Africa in our short to medium term future. It's a very controversial list of 6, and that's why I'm thrilled to welcome someone who is absolutely perfectly placed to tell us what we need to know, not just about the process and the NPA, but all of those 6 people. She is currently the executive director for a phenomenal and crucial organization called the Campaign for Free Expression. She is a human rights law activist and expert. Please welcome Nicole Fritz, everybody. Big Nicole Fritz fans here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I always stress when I have an expert on and do a chunky intro. Did I tell any lies there, or are we clear?
I'm very happy to claim them, even if they were at the house. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Before we get onto the shortlist, I ask everybody this, what is your hot take kind of on Shamila Batohi's time in the NPA? We know that she came in with a specific mandate to clean up the authority. We know that she has said that there are bad apples within the NPA who have stopped investigations, undermined the NPA's work, and yet at core, we've only had one major trial. It's barely even got off the ground. It's Ace Makashule and Edwin Sodi in the Free State about asbestos. Has she done enough? What's going on?
So the short answer is no, but that comes with caveats, because I think we have expected unfairly that she be a superhero. And I don't know that there is anyone in this country that would have succeeded. I think the expectation that a single individual, a single appointment is going to, or would have turned the NPA around in the time, given the state of degradation and demoralization that she would have inherited post the Zuma years, is just impossible. Nobody could bear that weight. That said, I do think that we are nonetheless justified in feeling some disappointment at the slow progress of trials, at the fact that we haven't seen the people who very obviously were bad apples, who haven't been moved out and space made for, good prosecutors, efficient, competent prosecutors. I think the fact that we're facing litigation in the Constitutional Court at the moment around extraditions and the possibility that all sorts of extraditions might be set aside, that is hugely concerning, and that there wasn't a kind of close eye paid to those types of processes is concerning. So I think the assessment is uneven. I do think that no one could have been a superhero, and those expectations were unfair.
The NPA has had a struggle, couldn't extradite the Guptas, Shepherd Bushiri got away, Pastor Omotoso got away.
Exactly.
These are all NPA cases. And you've got to ask, these are like basic functions of the NPA. You've got to be able to get this done. I don't care how many bad apples you have.
No, absolutely. And the question is, what is the system of oversight that they have? How is it that these incredibly important cases that are hugely significant, not just in terms of addressing crime and, the terrifying levels of crime in this country, but also for kind of general confidence, the public confidence in our administration to be able to do its job. How did you fail to ensure that there was proper oversight? How did these failures come about? And I think, as you say, ultimately, though, the NPA is sitting at the apex of a triangle. So it depends, as you've already indicated, on the cooperation of the Justice Department. The fact that a database from the Zondo Commission was not handed over timelessly is just unfathomable. But I see you've got a kind of Mkhwanazi cinematic universe, which I think must boggle the mind of all the public in South Africa. That's ongoing at the moment. We've got the Madlanga Commission, we've got the ad hoc parliamentary committee, we've got the inquiry into Andrew Chaki, who was the head of the Gauteng prosecutorial services, his fitness to hold office. I think to try and keep sense of what's going on, and the NPA ultimately has to kind of manage through the downstream consequences of all that corruption and criminality. And it's why it makes this job so hard, but so essential if our democracy is to function.
Does the NPA also have a problem of struggling to attract good prosecutors now because they don't have much money, or maybe because, the kind of like everyone's depressed about the NPA and maybe they feel hopeless? Are they struggling to get the right skilled people in?
I think in this respect, Shamila Batohi has done a good job in trying to provide sort of mentoring and support to prosecutors who are coming in. I do think that we've seen a lot of individuals acting at the bar in private practice who've sought to make their expertise available, and that has been phenomenal. But I don't think you can discount as good 10, 15 years of utter demoralization, where the NPA was captured by Zuma's hench people. And I think a number of those individuals who were their lieutenants remain in place, haven't been gotten out. And the demoralization and the dysfunction that has bred has meant that you don't have people stepping up. And I would say, I think we're seeing that in the shortlist too.
So, a lot of people have said this is not a very impressive shortlist. So there are 6 names, 5 of them you could see. One of them, Menzi Simelane, right?
No, Menzi Simelane, she's a Minister of she was our Minister of Justice.
Yes,
she's a Minister of Human Settlements.
Yes.
But we have Hermione Cronje,
yes,
Anthea Johnson. They've been head of the Independent Directorate Against Corruption, so people will be aware of them. That's sort of tied within the National Prosecuting Authority. So those names will be familiar. I think this woman, Zolisile Kanyile, also a figure that warrants real interest. It has to be tested, but the alarming, shocking thing is that Menzi Simelane
Sorry,
makes the shortlist.
I meant Menzi Simelane, not Menzi Simelane. Okay, so please tell us the backstory of Menzi Simelane, because it's jaw-dropping to me. He's technically had this job already.
Exactly. So he was appointed in 2009 by former President Zuma. He is appointed against the Ginwala Commission, which investigate the kind of ousting of Vusi Pikoli, who in fact was a really impressive National Director of Public Prosecutions. Menzi Simelane is involved in that ousting because there is an unlawful instruction given to Vusi Pikoli around the investigations that he is pursuing in respect of former head of police, Jackie Selebi.
Yes.
So Ginwala Commission makes these findings, says, Menzi Simelane, your evidence between this kind of lawfully constituted body brings into question your honesty, your conscientiousness, your credibility. So there are these very high-level findings. Notwithstanding those findings, the President goes and appoints him head of the National Prosecuting Authority. And the Supreme Court, then sort of upheld by the Constitutional Court, says it is entirely irrational that you would appoint this person in the face of those findings, give them no attention, and nonetheless appoint them. So we're setting aside that appointment.
Because that's what's interesting, right? For people who don't know, the President picks the NDPP. And there are a bunch of questions there about why a president would get to pick the person who decides what to investigate. But putting that aside, then the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court does have set-aside powers in the extreme cases. It sounded like this guy, let alone was unfit to be at the NDPP, he was unfit to practice law at the point at which you're not credible, you're probably a liar.
Absolutely. And as I say, what led to these findings was essentially an unlawful instruction as the DG of Justice to the then National Director of Public Prosecutions, Vusi Pikoli. So I think sends huge alarm bells. What the Constitutional Court does, and it's a legal body, so it's always going to err on the side of caution. It's saying, notwithstanding these findings, we're not saying that he can never be the Director of National Director of Public Prosecutions, but here is this huge weight that he would have to address, right? Okay. So it suggests that the panel is going to have to be exacting and especially robust in terms of presenting Mr. Simelane with these findings, and he is going to have the most outstanding explanation as to why the panel should not, hold those against him. And it is a very difficult cross to bear. And I think what it says potentially, which concerns me, is that potentially the panel is not. And again, I think this would be understandable because there have been so many travails infecting the NPA over the last 15 years that maybe they're not, especially on top of all those particular travails. And if you're going to appoint the next NDPP, you absolutely have to be so critically informed about what has happened. But the other thing, it speaks to the shallowness of the pool of those who applied.
Right, because on the one hand, I'm like, how did this guy make the shortlist? How could he possibly have made top 6? And I know that this isn't exactly her job, but I am thinking about the fact that our Justice Minister has no legal background and no legal training, and the one before her did too, which was the first time in, I think, 112, 119 years that the South African Justice Minister had no legal training. So that's also extraordinary, but maybe that's besides the point. I just want to ask you, Nicole, about the two names besides this man who are most familiar to South Africans. So Hermine Crinier, who was the head of prosecutions under Shamila Batohi, and she rage quit, basically. She said, I won't work for Shamila Batohi, but now she's back applying for Shamila Batohi's job. And the other one, Anthea Johnson, who's the head of IDAC, the Independent Directorate Against Corruption in the Police, who we've all seen at the ad hoc committee defending herself and IDAC from accusations from General Mkhwanazi that IDAC has been working to take out police who are fighting corruption. So those are the two most high-profile names in the South African public consciousness. What are your kind of reads of both of their suitabilities for this role and their chances?
So at this point, I mean, that's why these panel interviews have to be especially testing, and they have to be informed as to the state of the current NPA. And I don't think that we've got that diagnostic. And it seems to me, again, sort of inexcusable that we have set about, making this incredibly important appointment without that diagnostic, which would form an assessment for who is most fit. I do think it is worrying that it's not that it cannot be surmounted by Ms. Crinier, but the fact that she quit and wasn't prepared to continue to serve under Shamila Batohi, but is making herself available for her job, does speak to a level of distrust, fragmentation, division in the NPA. Again, I think that is something that we as the public need to know, but it speaks to who is the right person to try and repair those divisions, because we absolutely need that to happen. But again, I mean, you speak to Anthea Johnson, Ms. Johnson's, appearances before these committees. I mean, that speaks again to the type of very sort of exacting questioning and interviewing that we will need in order to test her suitability for this role.
Fingers crossed on this committee, on this panel. We just have to pray that they are competent and then they present well what their findings, and then that the president makes a reasonable decision.
Right. And I mean, one thing that I would say is that whilst the public has all sorts of reason for kind of skepticism, and the inclusion of Mr. Simelane does raise enormous concerns, I do think that we also have to take our hat off to those individuals who are making themselves available and who are fit and proper. Right. Because it's hard to imagine a more terrifying job, right? Yeah. If you are sitting in the middle of this Mkhwanazi universe, criminal infiltration at every turn, and you're holding that job and trying to turn the NPA around, we have to wish whoever that person is, if they're fit and proper, every success, because so much of our success of our democracy rests on that.
And we need to get the medical aid and a therapist and maybe some sleeping pills, some anti-anxiety medication. We need to do whatever we need for that person. Well, Nicole, I feel a lot calmer now about this. Thank you so much for your expertise and your insight. Nicole Fritz, everybody. Thank you so much.